These are the measurements that we're going to use for this particular block. No seam allowance added. First, we start with outline, and we start with a horizontal line, mark the middle of that, then we draw a vertical line. Next, we're going to measure the hip to waist measurement, which is 8.5 in this case, 8.5 inches. You mark that, then you square across. That's your hip line. Then next is the crotch line, which is 12 inches in this case, and then we add 1.5 for ease, 1.5 centimeter. Note, for smaller measurements I'm using centimeters. It's easier instead of converting inches into smaller units. Next, we do the knee line, which is half the measurement from crotch to the bottom. So you mark the half, and then we're going to deduct 2 inches. So you're marking 2 inches towards the crotch line, then you mark that as your knee line. And with this, the outline is complete. To make it easier to follow, I'm going to color code this. Front is red and purple is the back. Next, we are going to construct the front pattern, and we start by constructing the crotch line, which is the hip measurement times 1/12, which is 1/12 of the hip measurement. So you calculate that, and we get 4.3, and then you add 1.5 centimeters for ease, and that will become the crotch depth line. And then we square that across. That will become your front. Then we're going to extend the crotch line, depth line. So I've already computed those figures, and it's 3.25. So it's 1/16 of the hip measurement, which is 52 inches, and that gives us 3.25, and then we add 0.5 centimeter for ease, and that will give us the crotch depth line for the front pattern. So you mark that like that. Next, we're going to mark the front hip line. The hip line is the hip measurement. You divide by 4 because we're going to have 4 equal parts, which will give us 13 inches in this case, as the hip is 52. So we mark 13 inches. Then we add 0.5 centimeter. And that's for ease. Please note there's no seam allowance added to this. Then to the top, we're going to mark 1 centimeter inward. That will give us a starting point for our waistline, as it's going to be curved when you construct it. So you mark 1 centimeter inwards from the front, and then we're going to curve it like that, through that point and through that point. Before we curve, we're going to construct a diagonal line there for size 16 to 22 there, that bit there. For size 16 to 22, we are going to mark 3.25 centimeters. Obviously, if you got a bigger size or smaller size, you can reduce or increase accordingly. And that, I'm going to mark that with dot because it's just there to help us with the curving of the front. So we mark it like that, through there, and to the inner. So we're going to mark the front. This is where the flyer, the zip goes, the front, from the crotch line to the front of the trousers, through that point and to that point. And there we go. We've carved the front. Next, we're going to do the waistline. The waistline, again, is going to be divided by 4. We got the waistline as 38 inches. So we're going to divide by 4, and that will give us 9.5 inches. That's a quarter of 38, 9.5. And then we're going to add 2.25 for dart, because we're going to have a front dart in this pattern. So that 2.25 extra is for the dart construction. So we're going to mark 9.5. Then we're going to add the 2 centimeters for which will be taken in by the dart that we're going to put at the front. So at the center of the vertical line we made earlier, we're going to mark the dart on that point. So we're going to mark across 2 centimeters, and the dart will be 10 centimeters long. So those are the measurements for the dart. So 2 centimeters on the horizontal, which is 1 centimeter on each side, and then you mark 10 centimeters downwards. Then you construct your dart at that point, like that. Obviously with the dart you don't cut straight line, you through the dart like that. Have a little bit extra of fabric when you're cutting, because by the time you fold it you tend to lose a bit of that. Next we're going to do the bottom. We got 9 inches for that, so you mark that on both sides, and obviously you can mark as wide as you want. So the knee is 13 inches. We're going to mark that. You divide that by 2, it will be 6.5 on each side, and then we're going to add ease allowance of 1.5 centimeter for the size we're doing here. These are plus size 18, so I'm going to add 1.5 centimeters, but obviously it depends on how tight or loose you want it from the knee to the bottom. You can customize it how you like. Now we're going to draw the seam side. At the hip line we are going to add 0.5 centimeters outward. The hip line we marked earlier to give it a nice curve. So that gives us that curve. Then you curve all the way down to the bottom. Then smooth that area because our bodies are not pointed, so you make sure it's nicely curved. Now we're going to draw the inside seam through the points indicated, and between the crotch line and the knee we're going to curve it inward a bit. So I'm going to draw a temporary line there which is dotted, and on the middle of this line, at the middle of this line we're going to mark the middle of the line we're going to mark a point where we're going to curve it inwards 0.75 centimeters. But obviously this depends on how flared you want it or how tight. So in this case 0.75 centimeter inward. So I'm going to mark the middle point by folding the tape twice. It's easier. And I'm going to mark the middle point of that, and then measure inwards 0.75. Okay, so now we're going to curve it inward like that. give it a bit of a nice shape, and then you use a straight ruler to mark the bottom. Then we mark the bottom, and our front is done. Now for the next bit, I'm going to use my purple pen to differentiate between the front and the back. We're going to construct the front of the trousers, so we're going to take a quarter measurement of that. So we take a quarter of the front and the middle line to get the measurement we need for the front. So we take a quarter of 5.5, and that will give us 1.375. So we mark that from, so we're going to mark 1.3 from the front. You mark 1.3 from the front crotch. So we square that across, and then we're going to mark midway. Mark half of that line. We leave it, we'll come back to it later. That's for shaping the line, just like we have shaped the front. Then to get the waistline, we're going to mark 2 centimeters inward, and then because the waist is going to be raised, we mark another 2 centimeters upwards. To calculate the waist, we're going to do the same we did for the front, which is 9.5, which is a quarter of 38 inches. But for this, we're going to add 4.25 centimeters. We're adding 4 because we're going to have two dots of 2 centimeters each. So that's the measurement we're going to use for the back waistline. So we got 2 dots, each is going to be 2 centimeters wide. Right, that's how you calculate the waistline measurements. Okay. Right, so we measure the 9.5, which is a quarter of the waistline, 38 centimeters, and then we divide the waistline into 3 equal parts to mark the dot line. So we connect the horizontal odd line to the high point we created for the back waistline, and now we're going to divide that waistline into 3 equal parts and mark the 2 points for which we're going to construct the dots, which are going to be 2 centimeters wide each, and the first dot is going to be 12 centimeters long, and the second dot will be 10 centimeters long. So now let's construct the dot. Make sure your ruler is horizontal to the line we just drawn. Mark your points and then construct the dot. I'm going to speed this section because we're going to do exactly what we did for the first for the front. And there you go, we got our 2 dots in the dark pen, and now we're gonna true the dot. To true the dot means you don't draw it on as a flat line. You mark a little diamond on top of the dot. I'll show you in another video how to true the dot properly. So that's done, and now we're going to extend the crotch line. So you take half that measurement, half the front to the crotch, and then you mark that. That would be our new crotch end for the back. Then you're going to come down, mark down 0.5 centimeter downwards. So now we're going to connect the waist to the middle point we marked earlier, and then that corner we're going to use a different calculation for the size and then mark it all the way to the end. Now I'll show you how to do that for the size that we're doing. These are size 18 trousers block. So for this size, which is 16 to 22, that corner, to make it comfortable at the crotch area, we are going to add 4.25. So you mark 4.25 centimeters from the straight line, and that will guide you where to draw your curve, like that. We are now going to construct the hip line, which is a quarter of 52 inches, 13 inches. Mark our hip there, which is the hip line, 52 divided by 4. Then we add our ease, 1 centimeter there, and then we do the same for the knee and the same for the bottom. Mind you, for the knee and the bottom you can shape it how you like. So we are now going to connect the waistline all the way down. But at the hip line we're going to extend it again at 0.5, just like we did for the front. So we curve at that hip line there. .5 centimeter at the hip line. Depending on how curvy the pattern is, you can add that or less. Then we connect the front as well. So we mark a temporary line there, and as we did for the front, we're going to mark inwards, adding 0.75 or 0.5, however much you want to curve it in. And there we go, we are done with the same line. Now we're going to curve the bottom, so we're going to curve 1 centimeter downwards from the middle. So you mark 1 centimeter and you take your curved ruler and mark it like that. And there we're done. The back is all done. So you got your pattern there. What I do next is trace that into another pattern paper and then cut it out.